Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, and all sorts of good things and stuff like that. And, of course, today, I am awesomely privileged to be joined by the one and the only, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I'm really worried about that Phoenix Force. Will it be contained? I don't know.
We are going to talk about that in just a second here, of course. Now, today we are not joined by Ashley Whalen. She is off doing what she does, acting stuff, pshaw, whatever. So she's not joining us right now. But don't worry, guys. She'll be back. Now, listen, we do have a whole lot of stuff that we need to talk about today. And we got a couple things to go off the top before we get into our main topic. So we're going to go right off the top with this. As you guys know, James Gunn, who is, of course, made popular by the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise that he did, is now over in the other camp. He's now over at Warner Brothers in DC, and he's doing a brand new Suicide Squad movie. Now, we heard a while ago that what he was probably doing is kind of rebooting the whole thing. We heard it would not have Will Smith or Margot Robbie. Then a new report came out saying, actually, it's probably still going to have Margot Robbie. Well, we can definitely say that Will Smith's not going to be in it now because according to Variety, they have learned that Will Smith and the studio have parted ways, amicably they're saying, and he is no longer going to be a part of Suicide Squad moving forward. Rob, you hear this. What do you think this means for Suicide Squad? Are you surprised by this announcement of Will Smith no longer going to be being a part of it? Is it no surprise at all? And will this have any impact moving forward?
Well, no, I think that Will Smith is a star. He's not an ensemble guy. And I think that it's not like Deadshot was the breakout character of Suicide Squad anyway. I thought he was good in the role, but he's doing Bad Boys for Life now. He's returned to basically his signature role, and he's front and center of a movie. He's not dealing with a cast of other characters. He wants to maintain his star status, and I think it's kind of the right move for him. If I was Will Smith's representation, I would say James Gunn's going to whack it up. He's going to make it wacky, and he's going to make it himself. He's going to do what James Gunn does. So I can see that he's going to want to create a true ensemble, and I think Margot Robbie works better. Harley Quinn is an ensemble character, so she doesn't have to shoot probably as long. And she's not front and center. She's going to be part of that ensemble. So James Gunn's going to bring us probably people like Dave Bautista and a really interesting cast. So I think it's good.
Wouldn't that stir the pot if he got Dave Bautista over there?
Yeah.
But here's how this strikes me, Rob. This strikes me as a little bit funny. And here's why it strikes me a little bit
funny. Like in an Elton John way?
A little bit funny, this feeling inside. By the way, watch Moulin Rouge. Anyway, it strikes me a little bit odd because of this. They've already basically said he wasn't going to be in it.
Right.
They had already basically come out and said James Gunn is doing it and he don't need Will Smith and he's moving forward without the original cast. Oh, with maybe the exception of Margot Robbie. The way this kind of hits me is like Debbie got on social media like a week ago to say, hey, I'm no longer dating Fred. I'm now dating Bobby. So Debbie gets on social media a week ago and says, I'm no longer dating Fred. I am now dating Bobby. And a week later, Fred gets online and says, I've decided to break up with Debbie. What are you talking about? We've known that, apparently, is this it's not you, it's me situation? I dumped her. No, she dumped him.
I guess it's official. They make it official.
I guess it's official now, but it's kind of like, I don't know. We find out James Gunn doesn't really have interest in using Will Smith in this movie. And I'm sure that's nothing against Will Smith. Will Smith is a star. Will Smith is a tremendously talented actor. I'm a big fan of Will Smith. But it sounded like James Gunn's new incarnation wasn't going to involve the character anyway. And it sounds like a little bit of face saving on the part of the studio and Will Smith to come out and say, I have decided to leave the project. It's like, really? Yeah. It's like the Ford plant shuts down and you say a week later, I've decided to quit Ford. Well, okay, that's a pretty ballsy move. But look, I did not really think Will Smith, who is a tremendous talent, I didn't think he was going to be a good fit, like you were pointing out, for an ensemble movie like Suicide Squad. I thought he fit in pretty well.
I thought so too.
Yeah, I agree. And because he's got this rep around Hollywood, a little bit deserved because he's done some dumb things, granted. He's got this little bit of a rep around Hollywood that he's pretty much Will Smith first kind of attitude, like this is Will Smith, this is the son, a little bit of that attitude. But I thought he just blended in with the cast. He stood out when he needed to stand out and all that kind of stuff. So would I have had a problem with him coming back? None at all, because I thought he actually did a pretty good job. Am I okay with him not coming back? Yeah, simply because we already heard that James Gunn has a different vision, a different direction he wants to go with it. And I think it makes sense. So probably much ado about nothing. But you're right. They've now made it official. He's not going to be there. So
when you started talking about Debbie and Frank, I thought you were talking about Debbie Gibson, and I had flashbacks to the first time I bought her album Electric Youth. I don't know why.
Was that I Think We're Alone Now? Was that Debbie Gibson?
I think that's Tiffany.
That was Tiffany. You're right. Always got
God,
Tiffany.
am I betraying? Listen, I was never either. I did buy Debbie Gibson's album Electric Youth, but I never bought Tiffany's album. And she was a redhead, so I should have, but I didn't.
Well, I always got the two of them confused. All right, let's move on to the next off-the-top thing here. Yesterday on this show, we talked a little bit about the brand new X-Men Dark Phoenix poster that dropped. And surprisingly enough, even though we've heard maybe the movie's not that good, we both liked the poster. We actually both thought the poster was actually pretty good. Well, last night, the new trailer dropped. Rob, you had a chance to see this trailer last night. What do you think about the new trailer for X-Men Dark Phoenix?
I was confused by it. I mean, in the last teaser trailer we saw, it looked like Magneto was on Genosha, it looked like I was watching the trailer for X-Men 3. I mean, aside from when they go into space to rescue the space shuttle when the Phoenix Force explodes and takes over Jean Grey, I mean, she's in a neighborhood. She goes nuts in a neighborhood. Apparently, she does kill Mystique. Why they showed that in the trailer, I'll never know. But they're fighting in a neighborhood just like in X-Men 3. The X-Men are shackled in a train, where they have to get broken out just like in X-Men 3. It looks like they took the X-Men 3 script, made a few tweaks to it, and we're seeing the same movie. I mean, this is such a beloved story. It's a cornerstone of X-Men mythology in the comics. It was a huge deal, and it had epic scope. Where's the Starjammers? Where's Lilandra? I guess that Jessica Chastain, her character, is only being called an alien. She's just the alien, like walking around. I looked at it and I'm like, this movie has there looks like, okay, there's some scope to it, sort of, but not really. I mean, it after Days of Future Past, and whether you liked Apocalypse or not, and I know a lot of people didn't, it had some epic scope to it. This she picks up a train. I mean, I'm confused. I don't see that it's different enough from X-Men 3. It was weird to me. I don't know. I love the characters. I love seeing those characters again, but the movie, I'm perplexed by it.
I'll tell you what. I had a very different reaction to the trailer than you did. I actually thought it was quite good. I actually thought the trailer was quite good. I think because in X-Men 3, the Dark Phoenix stuff in X-Men 3, let's be honest here, was a side note in that movie.
Yeah.
That wasn't even the main story of the movie. It was relegated to a sub-story in the bigger story of the movie, which is really more about the kid who had the power to negate other mutants' powers, and Magneto wanted to kill the kid and blah, blah, blah. That was the main story.
Sure.
And Dark Phoenix was a side note. So on that, I don't get that sense at all. I get the sense that in this movie, Dark Phoenix is the story. And that's what this movie's going to focus on, and that's what this movie's going to be about. Now, I had the same reaction as you initially when I saw, like when they basically laid it out for us that Mystique dies, right? I remember my first thought was, really? Why are you showing us that in the trailer?
Yeah.
But then I thought about it for about 5 seconds, and I thought, because we all already knew Mystique dies. Like from the first moment, like from that first trailer when we see there's a funeral scene and we see Beast is really upset about it, is upset enough that he would look angrily at Charles and go, this is your fault. And you never see Mystique in anything else past that in the trailer. We all knew. I mean, we talked about it on this show. We all knew Mystique dies. We all know. So I think what they did here was make a decision to say, hey, Everybody knows Mystique's going to die in this. Let's embrace that in the trailer to really up the stakes, to really let the conflict that the surviving characters will feel about what do we do about Jean, because it's not that just that she might be turning bad. She killed Mystique. And after I thought about it for a minute, I went back and watched the trailer again. And I thought, you know what? That actually makes it pretty effective for me, because now I actually feel that turmoil the surviving characters may actually be feeling about this, because it's still Jean, but she killed Mystique. She killed Charles's sister. She, for all intents and purposes, his sister. So but, I actually dug it quite a bit.
See, I was hoping there would be more to the scope of the film, I guess, in terms of plot. I mean, okay, we know that Jean Grey's bad because the movie's called Dark Phoenix. But beyond that, there's nothing in the trailer that made me go, oh, they're really putting an interesting spin on this mythology. They told me nothing more than the title of the film in that trailer. I mean, what I mean is, what more is there? What more of the story is there other than Jean Grey just turning bad and crying and killing Mystique and the X-Men being mad, and Hank McCoy is going to leave and join Magneto because he's pissed, and it's just I don't know. It just seemed like the whole movie is just the premise, and I wanted more to it than that, because that story is so epic.
I don't know, man.
Where's the showdown on the moon, man?
But look, none of these comic book adaptations take directly from the comic books and play them out beat by beat. I mean, we know that, right? And what else do we need to know? I mean, look, I'm always complaining. I will complain quite often if a trailer doesn't give us anything about the story. But I know the basic premise of the story now. Jean Grey, they go into space, some kind of entity in space possesses her body. It's now turning her incredibly powerful and a little bit dark, pardon the pun, turning her dark. She ends up killing one of her own teammates, and now the rest of the X-Men are in a bit, and as well as the other mutants as well, are now faced with this conundrum of how do we survive? How do we deal with this Jean Grey thing? Do we kill her? Do we try to save her? Blah, blah, blah. It told us all of that in the trailer. How much more do we want them to tell us? I mean, I'm always complaining. I'm the one, Rob, who complains about this trailer didn't show us anything. I felt like this trailer gave us a hell of a lot, and I think they did a good job making it feel much darker than what we're traditionally used to with this type of stuff. Now, look, this doesn't change anything as far as we have both already heard from different people that this movie has not turned out the way they wanted it to turn out. I mean, so the fact that they've put out a fantastic, in my opinion, a pretty damn good trailer, in your opinion, a pretty poor trailer, neither of our opinions changes the fact that it doesn't matter, because we've all heard that the movie's probably not very good.
I don't think necessarily the trailer's poor, but it looks like the whole, other than when the Quinjet goes, or the Blackhawk goes up into space, it looks like the whole thing takes place in some suburban neighborhood and the X Mansion. Like, if you've got the Phoenix Force that's threatening the whole planet, show something that shows some scope in this movie. I mean, there's no people in it other than some soldiers and the X-Men themselves. I mean, is there a city being threatened? Like, if Jean Grey goes, full on Phoenix, so just let her move to the next suburban neighborhood. I mean, where's the threat?
I'll tell you what, though, the trailer got me, even though I've already heard the movie's not very good, the trailer got me more excited for the movie. I thought it was a step up from the previous trailer. And I thought they showed us enough. You clearly, though, however, feel a little bit. You're kind of feeling like they should have showed more scope, a little bit of some more things to differentiate this one from the previous X-Men 3 film. And I mean,
after Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, this looks like, the X-Men have a vacation and they just happen to stumble upon Dark Phoenix. They're all kind of kicking it in the X-Mansion and living in suburbia.
Well. We'll have to agree to disagree on this one. Well, will the movie actually turn out to be salvageable? Who knows? We're going to have to wait until June to find. It's June 7th, I believe the film comes out, so it's not that far away. So let's see how this all turns out. All right, guys, let's now move on to our main topics of the day. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You guys select them by emailing me your topics and questions anytime, 24/7, to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you guys put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. With that down, let's get to our first email of the day. And our first email today comes to us from Optimus Ed, who writes, hello, fellow film fans. Obviously, Rami Malek is a big name right now with his huge Oscar win the other night for Best Actor. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that there are reports right now that he's in quote-unquote final negotiations to play the villain in the new James Bond film. I know this may or may not happen. So my question is, if true, do you think he could make a good Bond baddie? Robert, let's start with you on this one. If it does turn out, and let's treat this as a rumor for now, it is just a rumor, but
Sure.
His name's hot. Rami Malek's name has been attached to Bond before. We have heard his name whispered about Bond before, possibly being a Bond villain. So let's go on the assumption that it's true. If it's true, Rob, is this a good fit?
You know, I'm a huge James Bond fan, and I think it could be great. I think that I would love to see Rami Malek unleashed. I mean, we had the last, I think, good Bond villain, even though I wasn't that much a fan of the film, was Silva in Skyfall, you know, and Javier Bardem was great. And he was a great, flamboyant, dangerous, very amusing and wildly entertaining Bond villain. And I think Rami Malek could do the same kind of a thing. It really, again, it depends. I just want to see Bond 25, which will be Daniel Craig's last outing as Bond. I want to see a Bond film that brings back the scope of, say, Spy Who Loved Me or You Only Live Twice, some giant, huge megalomaniac bent on world destruction and in a secret lair somewhere. Let's bring back the Bond tropes and let's give Daniel Craig a send-off that he deserves, because, you know, the Bond films have been very sort of grounded during the entire run of Daniel Craig. I want to see him go full Bond, peak Bond. And Rami Malek could do that.
Well, I mean, the thing about Rami Malek, here's what would be the good thing about it. The good thing about it is this guy, whether it's in Mr. Robot or whether it's playing Freddie Mercury, this dude can bring in intensity to a scene, the likes of which we have not seen often in a lot of performers. Like, he can completely bring this very focused intensity that I think would be some of the good building blocks for a really good James Bond kind of villain. He is a tremendous actor. He's an Emmy-winning, I believe he's an Emmy-winning actor. I believe he's won an Emmy for Mr. Robot. He is an Academy Award. He's the reigning defending best actor at the Academy Awards now. This is a high-profile project. It seems like it would be a logical next step for him moving into that too. Here's the one problem, though, and it's not really a problem so much as a caution. And the caution is simply this. Christoph Waltz is one of the best actors on the planet, I think. Christoph Waltz is amazing. And all that stuff I just said about Rami Malek, you could say about Christoph Waltz. But it gets neutered if you don't have a script with a well-written out villain. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't think Christoph Waltz or the Blofeld character was bad in Spectre, but it was lukewarm, let's say.
The whole movie.
Well, yeah, maybe perhaps even like the whole movie. I haven't walked away. I haven't thought about it once. I haven't thought about the character once. So it's cool. You can go ahead and get a Rami Malek to be in a movie like this, and that's great. But it won't mean anything unless you give us a script with a villainous character that a guy with the talent of Rami Malek can step in and actually bring to life. Because if you just write out another character like the one they gave Christoph Waltz, it's just going to be another Bond villain. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it won't really count. Now, even if that's true, would you rather have Malek in the movie or not in the movie? Well, clearly you'd want to have him in. Is the idea of having Rami Malek in this movie a good idea or a bad idea? Clearly it's a good idea, but let's not get ahead of ourselves because he ain't the one that's going to write the dialogue. So,
right.
So let's see how that turns out. All right, let's move on now to the next email today. And the next email today comes to us from Dale Schumer, who says, "Hear me and rejoice. Star Trek Discovery has been renewed for season 3. I know Robert Meyer Burnett isn't a big fan of the show, but I have never loved any Star Trek story as much as this one, considering how expensive this show is. Does this move indicate just how much CBS believes in the show?" Well, yeah, so this came out, I'll be honest with you, I was a little surprised. I was surprised when Star Trek Discovery got renewed for season 2, and I'm equally surprised that it got renewed for season 3. Not because, for me personally, as a quality issue, because I actually quite enjoy Star Trek Discovery, but because it's such an expensive show. It is such an expensive show. I just thought, look, you can't keep this thing going, can you? But they did announce yesterday that Star Trek Discovery is official now. It's coming back for a season 3. Now, I do not believe it's not my favorite Star Trek stuff of all time, don't get me wrong, but I have really bought into this show. It is, for me, it is distinctly unique apart from any other Star Trek stuff that we've ever had, which to some people is frustrating, but to me, personally, I think it's an advantage. While also maintaining some of the core elements of a Star Trek show that I've always enjoyed. Is it make it my favorite Star Trek thing of all time? No, absolutely not. I've got a couple incarnations that I prefer a little bit more, but I'm not going to lie. When I read that Star Trek Discovery Season 3 was coming, I also got a big smile on my face. Now, the only person who would have had a bigger smile on his face, I know, and would have felt more joy than you did, is Robert Meyer Burnett. So clearly, he's super pumped about this. Robert, what do you think about the news of the renewal of Star Trek Discovery?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that Dale loves Star Trek Discovery, because I think it's great when we get things that we love. So that's terrific. I think, look, whenever a TV show gets renewed, it's great for the cast, it's great for the crew, it's great for the writers, it's great for the producers, it's great for everybody because they're working. But I think that what Star Trek is now becoming is the anchor with which CBS thinks that they can create a streaming service akin to a Netflix, akin to Amazon, akin to Hulu. And they just can't. You can't. What people have never understood is that the Star Trek audience is finite. It's always been a niche show. It's not going to ever be Game of Thrones. It's not going to break through like that. And I think by renewing it, CBS All Access they have their most viewers from football and from Star Trek. And Star Trek Discovery this season is only 14 episodes long. And then when it goes off the air, they let their subscription lapse. And I think they're trying to make all these new Star Trek shows, the Picard show. They're hoping the Twilight Zone will break through. They're turning Star Trek into a sausage factory. They got to keep making that sausage, keep everybody happy. And they changed the showrunner. They announced a new showrunner to again, a woman whose credits, she hasn't worked on that much television. She worked on the originals. She was an executive producer and showrunner on the originals.
My wife loved that. Actually, I like the originals quite a bit too myself.
Yeah, I mean it was okay, but is that a good fit for a Star Trek show? I don't know. I mean, I said this yesterday on my own show. I said, why can't we get the Ryan Coogler of Star Trek, who came in and re-energized the Rocky franchise by making Creed? I've said this to you. I think Creed is one of the greatest franchise continuations in history, because it had new life breathed into the franchise, and you gave Sylvester Stallone one of not just his best portrayal of Rocky, but one of the best roles of his career in the mentor role with Adonis Creed. And it was done because you had a great fan who was also a world-class filmmaker come in and make the movie. I'd love to see that happen with Star Trek. I'd love to see a world-class filmmaker come in who loves Star Trek, not just people who are taking it on as a job. And, Alex Kurtzman has one failed thing after the other, and now he's in charge of the whole Trek franchise. Whoa. Alex
Kurtzman has some pretty big wins on his resume. He's got some losses too, but let's not pretend Alex Kurtzman doesn't have some pretty big wins on his resume as well.
But is he the best showrunner for Star Trek? I mean, he drove the Dark Universe into the ground out of the gate.
Well, I don't think that was, and by the way, I didn't think The Mummy was as bad as most people think it is, but that wasn't Alex Kurtzman's responsibility for that.
He wasn't director.
All I've got for one movie, yes, which I actually quite liked, but I didn't quite like. No, I just didn't think it was as bad as other people thought. But I'll say this. I think Discovery's been a win. I think there are enough people watching it, liking it. I think you're getting new crops of people who maybe have never really been into Star Trek. Like my wife, for example.
Well, as I said, I think that's the best part about it. New viewers of the franchise.
So, and as long as that can happen and keep the Star Trek franchise alive, it opens up the possibilities for other types of shows to come later.
Sure.
Like I know a lot of people are very excited about what this, Patrick Stewart seems very excited about this Picard show. And if it wasn't for Star Trek Discovery, and the level of success that it's had, it hasn't been blowing things out of the water, but it's had a certain level of success. If it wasn't for Discovery, we probably wouldn't be getting this Picard show. And if something like that can lead to other things that give us different types of Star Trek shows that might appeal to other Star Trek lovers as well, then I think it's only a good thing. But for sure, Rob, look, you're not the only guy I know who doesn't like Discovery. I have a couple of friends of mine who really don't like the show. It's a little bit divisive for sure, and I'm a little bit surprised that I liked it. To be frank with you, I'm a little bit surprised that I like it because I think if you described the first couple of seasons on a 2-page treatment to me, I probably would look at it and go, not interested. You know what I mean? So I'm a little bit surprised that it's worked for me as well as it has. And I'm a little bit surprised that with the expense that show has to make that show, I'm shocked it's getting its season 3. But the fact that it could lead to other stuff for Star Trek, I think is pretty good news. So let's see what happens in season 3. I'm still not caught up with, I'm still like 2 episodes behind on this season. So I gotta get motoring on that. All right, let's move on to email number 3. And the third email today comes to us from Mike. And Mike writes, "Hey, John, reports are coming out saying Endgame is tracking for hold on to your seats, folks, a $282 million, that's oddly specific, a $282 million opening weekend, which would beat the previous box office opening record by Infinity War. It wouldn't just beat it, Mike, it would blow the previous record out of the water. Do you think this is accurate? And is there a chance this movie beats Avatar with an opening that large?" Well, let's start with the Avatar part first. Hell no. Hell no. It's like, this movie is not going to make the same amount of money as Infinity War plus $780 million more on top of that. So, hey, look, is anything possible? It's absolutely possible. I shouldn't say it's impossible because it's not. But I highly doubt it. I don't think Infinity War, let's put it this way. I don't think Infinity War left a $780 million on the table. Let's just put it that way. I don't think Infinity War left that much on the table before. But let's talk about this thing. Rob, it was funny because just the other day, you and I talked about, somebody wrote in, what do you think, which milestone do you think falls first? 3 billion overall worldwide, or 300 million? And I said 3 billion worldwide. You said 300 million opening weekend. Mm-hmm. If these tracking numbers hold up, we're getting dangerously close to that 300 million opening weekend number that I said the 3 billion went up. So we could get really damn close to that. Couple of cautions though here, I would suggest. There are a couple of cautions. The first caution I would suggest is this, is that you can't take tracking numbers from 2 months out all that seriously. It's fun to speculate and it's fun to try to, look down the road a little bit and see what happens. But 2 months out is actually quite a ways out. So I don't know that you can take it all that seriously at 2 months out. Now, we could get closer and it could stay at 282 million, or it could go up or it could go down, whatever. But I would say let's not get too many of our eggs in one basket here on a projection number that comes out 2.5 months in advance or 2 months in advance. There's another giant asterisk, though, here to this, Rob. There is a giant but that's attached to this whole thing about 200 million. And here's the giant but. Now, this comes out of Bloomberg Business, where they were talking to the tracking company that did put out this projection number. Here's what the report in Bloomberg said, and this is very, very key. Check this out. They said this: Avengers Endgame is expected to set a weekend box office record when it opens on April 26th. Researcher Exhibitor Relations predicts 282 million in North American ticket sales, topping the 258 million mark set last year by Avengers Infinity War. Now, here we go. Infinity War left audiences with a cinematic cliffhanger, Jeff Brock of the Researcher's senior analyst said. The only thing that could really affect the opening weekend would be a running time that exceeds 3 hours. So what this dude is saying, he said these numbers, these projection numbers that Exhibitor Relations have put together with their forecast is dependent upon Infinity War not being a 3+ hour movie. They're saying the only thing that changed this is if it's a 3+ hour movie. Rob, I think this is very, very relevant. and very, very key and very, very important, because this brings together a couple of conversations we've had about Avengers Infinity War. One conversation, how big would the opening weekend be? One conversation that we've heard a lot about, could it be a 3+ hour movie? And what this exhibitor relation company is saying is one could pretty much kill the other. Like, if this movie's a 3.5 hour movie, it's going to make huge box office, no doubt, but it's going to radically affect that projected number of 282, because as they went on in the Bloomberg article to explain, is that they figure it'll lose somewhere X number of thousands of actual screenings that the film can have in its first 72 hours. Like, it was in the thousands that will be reduced if it's a 3+ hour movie. And they broke it all down about how it all works out with the length and screen time and all that kind of nonsense. So let me ask you this, Rob. Number one, do you think, just on its surface, that this $282 million projection can hold up? Number two, do you think that what Bloomberg was talking about would be enough incentive for Marvel to make sure they keep this movie under 3 hours? How do you see those two things?
Well, one, the movie it's locked. You know, it's going to be, I'm sure it's picture locked, aside from if Fox and Marvel's deal is really done on March 8th, they can finally put Galactus in the end of the movie. I think
you had to get that in there. No,
I think that this projection will hold, because what happens is, as many people know, you know, you've got 16 screen multiplexes, and they'll just put the movie. No theater wants a 3 hour gap between times. So what they'll do is they'll have like 10 screens playing Infinity or Endgame, and they'll stagger those times. They'll just fill up more screens with the movie, and they'll have Infinity War will either begin every half hour or every hour. So they'll keep showing. They'll just add more screens, and that'll satiate the demand. I think this movie's going to have the biggest opening of all time. I don't know if it's going to exceed Avatar, but like I've said to you on the show before, I think it's going to make, if the movie's good, I think it's not so much the running time. It's this movie has so much anticipation. I mean, I'm expecting the clouds open and Gozer the Gozerian returns and comes down and destroys the world. That's how much this movie's, it must change my life. I think this movie is going to be like, there's only winning $1 billion in the lottery won't compare to what seeing Avengers Endgame is going to be like. That's what people are thinking. Now, if the movie doesn't provide, if this movie doesn't stick the landing of 22 movies, you know, I don't know what people are going to do. But if it does, I think this movie could have that $300 million opening. And I don't think that any other movie should even open within 2 weeks of this movie, because all the theaters are going to be full of people watching Endgame. I really think that.
I don't think a 3 hour end time will affect the overall worldwide number, because people will go eventually. So I don't think a 3 hour runtime affects the overall number. But as Bloomberg pointed out, it absolutely affects the opening weekend, because that whole process you were just describing, they already did that with Infinity War. They did that. Like, I remember at the AMC Burbank 16, it was take up every single screen, and it was a new screening of it starting every 20 minutes. Like, it was all that kind of stuff. But even then, when you do that, the longer the runtime gets, the shorter of a window you have. You're going to lose out with 16 screens. By the end of the night, you might miss out. Even if you're running at 24 hours, you might miss out on 2 or 3 potential screenings. That doesn't sound like much over 16 screens over 24 hours, that you just lose 2 or 3 potential screenings. But when you multiply that by another 1,000 theaters across North America, it equals 3, 4, 5,000 less screenings than it could have had at that runtime. I'll tell you this. There is no way that Avengers Endgame hits $280 million opening if it's a 3+ hour movie. No way. It just can't. It can still break the record. It can still break that $258 million record. But I just don't see there's any possibility it can hit 280 if it's over 3 hours long, because they're going to be losing out on thousands of screenings in that opening weekend that Infinity War enjoyed the benefit of being able to do. So I think that'll be difficult, but it can still break that record. I still don't see it getting anywhere close to Avatar. I said the same. I remember.
It depends how good it is. You know,
Maybe.
I mean, because Avatar. Remember, Avatar didn't have a
Avatar, but
particularly huge
Infinity
opening.
War was amazing. Infinity War was amazing, and it just crawled over the $2 billion mark.
But that's because there's a big portion of the audience. Like, look, my mom. I've told this story before. I took my mom to see Avatar, and she was blown away. My mother didn't go see Avengers Infinity War. Avatar was a standalone film. You didn't have to have watched all the other Marvel movies. Your grandma could go to Avatar and still be transported away. And that's why it played for a long time. It reached that number because it was playing in IMAX 3D and it showed people things they had never seen before. But this movie, people have seen now that Infinity War's on Netflix and people can catch up with it. I think the interest in Endgame couldn't be higher, and I think people's anticipation couldn't be higher. And I think that this movie, if it's good, then it might keep playing throughout the summer and make that cheddar, make that 2.7 or 2.8 million, 100 billion. Billion, right? 2.8 billion, right? Billion, right?
And that's
billions
the thing.
Dollars, yeah.
But I agree.
Billion.
I agree, but I think we're forgetting how good Infinity War was.
Right,
Infinity
I know.
War, and how beloved it was, and the anticipation. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. There's a known online film pundit who literally bet me $1,000 that, by the way, I've still never seen. Literally bet me $1,000 that Infinity War was going to beat Avatar. And I had so many people insisting going into Infinity War. It's like, I think you guys are underestimating just how giant the $2 billion number is.
Right.
And of course it didn't, and nobody actually paid me, but that's fine. That's fine. I probably wouldn't have paid if it did too. And now I'm having everybody tell me it's going to beat Avatar again. And I'm saying, look, understanding the excitement going into Infinity War, understanding how beloved that movie is, understanding how it ran 24/7, understanding all of that, just nobody's been able to show me that Infinity War left $780 million on the table. It's not like Infinity War was, some people saw it and it was moderately received, but Endgame's going to be great. Infinity War was awesome. It was mind-blowingly good. People talked about it for months. We're still talking about it. You still watch it and cry like a baby when you do.
I do.
Of course we do. And that's the movie. And that movie made $2.04 billion. Did it leave 780? And I don't know. Look, I'll say this though, Rob. I'll say this. If any film in recent memory, like in a 2 to 3 year window, has a chance at hitting that Avatar number, it's Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
If like not Star Wars Episode 9, not anything else, not Lion King. And I still think Lion King could end up being the number one box office film of the year. I still think there's a possibility for that. But I think if anyone had an actual shot at the Avatar number, it is probably Avengers Endgame for all the reasons you so eloquently laid out. I mean,
think
you're absolutely right.
We're a week away, John, from Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
a week away, and then we're 45 days away or something away from Infinity War, and 45 days away from Game of Thrones season 8.
It's a glorious time.
I'm just I hope I'm not diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer, that I don't get hit by a bus. Because I'd be bummed out, dude. The next 45 days have got some good viewing coming down the road, and we don't know what's happening in these things. We have no idea what's happening in Infinity or in Endgame.
You raise a good point too about Captain Marvel, because one of the things, I have not seen the movie yet. I see it on Monday, so I see it. What day is it? Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I see it in 4 days. One of my friends who has seen it said this to me. Said, if you think you're excited for, and he didn't put in any kind of context, he just said, if you think you're excited for Avengers Endgame right now, wait until after you watch Captain Marvel. I'm like, really? Tell me more. No, I didn't want him to tell me any more. And I've heard kind of similar sentiments from some people. It's like, I'm more excited now for Endgame than I ever have been, blah, blah. Who knows? That might kick it up to another level. That maybe Captain Marvel kicks it up to another level, or maybe Captain Marvel sucks and we all are mad at Avengers and don't want to see it anymore. But
dude, we're not going to hate Captain Marvel because it's going to go full on flirking. You know it. When the
full on flirking
out,
Full on flirking. And
Say,
by the way, let's put this into perspective. When they're talking about a possibly $282 million, to some people that sounds like math. For the longest time, when box office opening weekend records were broken, it was broken by $5 million, broken by $7 million. This would be exceeding it by over $20 million. Let's look at here are the biggest box office opening weekends of all time for comic book films, all right? Avengers Infinity War 257. Look at the second place one, Avengers at 207. It beat it by $50 million. And look, all the films that come after Avengers are just incremental numbers. Black Panther is the number 3 film at 202, just a $5 million difference. Just an $11 million difference between the Black Panther and Avengers Age of Ultron. Just like a $12 million difference between Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War. Just a $5 million difference between Captain America Civil War and Iron Man 3. By the way, you notice all top 6 spots are held by Marvel films. Then Batman vs. Superman, just like $8 million behind that at 166. Dark Knight Rises, just $6 million behind that. Dark Knight, just $2 million behind that. Spider-Man 3, just $7 million behind that. So it's 7, 7, 2, 8, 6, 11, 12, $50 million difference between Avengers and Infinity War. And it would be that type of, if this movie came in at $282 million, you're looking at that type of a jump. You're looking at like a $25 million jump over a previous record. If it actually does, and it's too early to call, but if it actually does, it's not just breaking a record. It is shattering a record. It's destroying a record that a lot of people, including me, thought was going to stand for a pretty damn long time. So it would be pretty freaking impressive if that happens. All right, we've got to move on now to our next topic today. And our fourth email in here today comes to us from our good friend Chris B, who writes, Tarantino's next film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, changed its release date once. But I was wondering if you think the date should be moved yet again. Hollywood comes out only 1 week after The Lion King, talking about box office juggernauts, which is expected to be a massive hit. As excited as people are for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm worried a hard R-rated crime film can't help but get swept aside opening so soon after one of Disney's most beloved franchises. Robert, they've now got this Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a movie I'm looking forward to very much, one of the best casts that Quentin Tarantino has ever assembled. It's now opening just 1 week after Lion King. Just flat out, straight up question. Can Once Upon a Time in Hollywood financially survive opening just 1 week after Lion King?
Well, I think a period piece set in Hollywood of the late 60s that deals with Charles Manson and the Tate LaBianca murders, I don't think the audience is the same, John. I think that the audience that's going to see Lion King, sure, it's going to be movie lovers, but I think the people that want to see the new Quentin Tarantino movie are going to go see the new Quentin Tarantino movie. I don't think that it's threatened at all. They're totally different films. And it's the summer movie season, and that's what happens. The films are going to thrive, and also this movie it doesn't have the budget that the Lion King. I mean, I'm sure the Lion King costs close to $300 million to make because of literally the whole movie's a special effect. So I don't see it as having a problem. I think the movie's Quentin Tarantino's new film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is going to do just fine.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, considering Jungle Book cost, what did it cost? Like $175 to make? I don't know the Lion King will come close to $300, but still, I think you absolutely nailed it, Rob. I mean, look, are there going to be some parents who would like to go see the R-rated Quentin Tarantino movie, but they got the little ones and they're going to go take them to see Lion King instead? Is there going to be some of that? Sure. Yeah, no doubt. But you nailed it on the head, Rob, when you mentioned that these are completely different movies that are going after completely different audiences. And there will be a little bit of overlap for sure. And yeah, when you sit back as a film fan and you look at this release schedule, Friday, July 19th, Lion King, July 26th, Once Upon, what? You're putting my movie where? You're putting my movie when? I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but again, it is completely different audiences.
Totally.
And I just don't see how one really has a massive effect on the other. Now, I often talk about this. Is there an effect Sure, yes, there's going to be an effect. Would Once Upon a Time in Hollywood make a little bit more opening weekend if it was opening a week after almost any other film? Yes. But I don't think it's going to be a night and day tectonic shift. This either makes or breaks us kind of thing. I don't think that's going to be there at all. Not to mention, once the movie does come out, it's going to be like a Django Unchained. It's got to be word of mouth that will then carry it to either having big box office like a Django or not so big box office like a Hateful Eight. And it's really going to come down to the quality of the movie. But man, this movie sounds so cool. This movie sounds so good. I'm so excited about it. And I think a lot of people are. And I'll probably see Lion King 5 times when it opens. But then I'm going to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the moment it opens too. And I think there's going to be a lot of people in the same boat. So yeah, I think we're good. I think we're all good. All right, let's move on now to the final email of the day. And the final email today comes to us from Nicholas Rojas, who writes, "Hi, John and crew. I wanted to get your opinion on the interview Ezra Miller did, and when he was asked about the development on the Flash movie. He quoted that the movie is just like the Flash himself, always late, but when he arrives, stuff gets done. What did you think about these comments, and when do you think we'll finally see a Flash film?" All right, thanks a lot for the email, Nicholas. And for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, a couple of days ago, Ezra Miller was being asked about the on again, off again, it's coming, it's not coming, we have a director, no we don't, 7 times over Flash movie. And he said that they're still working on it, it's still coming. He made some references saying that this Flash movie will create like a new universe. It's a speedster universe because in the DC world we have the multiverse and the speedsters move in between the multiverse, and we're going to create like a new universe that's just about the speedsters and all this kind of stuff. And then when asked about the delays, he gave the stereotypical answer we get out of everybody. It's delayed because we care so much. Because we're so committed to making this one a love letter to the fans. We're making this one for the fans. You know what's funny? That's a word-for-word script about the explanation they just gave for the delays on the Harry Potter Newt Scamander next movie, for the new Fantastic Beasts. It's word for word. It's just that we care so much about it. We really want to do this one for the fans. It's like, okay, yeah, we've heard that before. So now, look, this Flash movie, before we get to your basic question is if this movie ever really going to happen. This movie has been fraught with on-again, off-again drama from screenwriters, release dates, filming start dates, like now no release date, all this kind of stuff isn't even happening. But not the least of which, it's really all summed up to, even if you just look at the history of the directors. Because if you look at the history of the directors, it's like they jump into the Speed Force and they disappear. Because at first, it looked like the front runners were Chris Miller and Phil Lord. Wrote a story tree. And by the way, this is from the good folks over at Slash Film, who put together this little outline, which is a perfect representation of it. Also wanted them to direct. They said no. They were busy. So Warner Brothers actually spent some time trying to get Lord Miller to direct. They turned it down. Then you get Seth Grahame-Smith, who's got a number of really good films on his resume. He was hired to write and direct the film, and then the dreaded departed in 2016 due to, quote-unquote, creative differences. Then you get Rick Famuyiwa, who did a great job on like 1,000 things. By the way, he's going to be directing some of the Star Wars Mandalorian show that's coming up. He became the director in 2017, but then he left because of, quote-unquote, creative differences. Now, look, before we get on to the whole Zemeckis and everything thing, I've never understood this. I've never understood this, whether it's with Lucasfilm and their directors, whether it's DC and their directors, whatever. How do you not figure out if you have creative differences or not before you hire the director? Like, I don't know, Rob, call me crazy. If I'm going to spend $300 million on making and marketing a film, and I need to hire a director, I am going to sit down with that director for 4 or 5 interviews, really go over what the idea for the movie would be, and make sure we are on the same page. To me, that has been, by the way, the biggest failure of Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm has been, I think she's done a number of things well, yes, but to me, the biggest thing she keeps stumbling over is she keeps hiring directors that she eventually has to let go because she didn't do good enough due diligence to make sure they were on the same page. And it's happened like 3 or 4 times over there, and we see it happening repeatedly at DC as well. It's 2 directors in a row that you had brought on, and then leftover creative differences. How can you not get your shit together enough that you figure that stuff out before you hire them? And it's not just Disney, and it's not just Warner Brothers. Every studio does it, and I will never understand it. I will never understand. But let's move on here. So after Rick departed over creative differences, there was tons of reports that Robert Zemeckis was in final negotiations. Now, of course, guys like Sam Raimi, Mark Webb, Matthew Vaughn, their names are all in the mix as well. But the reports were Robert Zemeckis was down, and it was final negotiations, and then that fell apart. Then we heard that Lord and Miller were back in the mix, and then that fell apart. Then they got the guys who directed Game Night, which I really enjoyed Game Night. They finally landed on the guys, John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who were co-writers on Spider-Man Homecoming, which is really good. They were announced as the directors, and there's been some speculation as to whether or not they'll actually end up being the directors. So, Rob, you hear all this stuff. You hear about this new interview with Ezra Miller talking about, the Flash may be late, but news arrives. You reflect on all the drama. Let me just ask you straight up here, Rob. Is this Flash movie actually going to happen, or is this Flash movie going to be one of the casualties of Walter Hamada taking over the DC universe and wanting to take things in a different direction? Or do you think, this thing will at some point happen? Is it?
I think a lot of this Flash movie depends on the success of Shazam, to be honest. I think if they
looks so good.
It looks so good, and if this lighter approach to superheroics, I mean, Ezra Miller is a gifted actor, and he's a gifted comedic actor. He's got a great presence, and I think if Shazam is it's not gonna make $1 billion, but if it does really, really well, I think we will see a follow-up. A Flash movie will get fast-tracked into production because it's the closest thing they have to a Shazam-like character. And they'll have... I think the real problem with this Flash movie has been always, what is it going to be? What is the Flash story we can tell on the big screen that people are already getting on the small screen? And I think that's actually really hard to do because the Flash Rogues Gallery isn't so much a big screen rogues gallery. It's working better on TV, and they've really mined it.
What, Mirror Master isn't a great big screen villain? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's been the real problem with the Flash movie is how do you tell a big screen Flash story? And I think it's hard. And I think that's what the big problem is. And I think the directors that have come and gone and the screenwriters that have come and gone have not been able to lick the story they want to tell. But I think if Shazam works, Shazam is for all of its magic and craziness and Dr. Sivana and all that, it's more of a grounded, it's just as much fun watching Shazam walk into a 7-Eleven to buy beer as it is to watch him fighting over the skies of whatever city, Fawcett City or wherever he's living. I mean, and you would get that with a Flash movie too. Flash being funny and doing Flash-like things on his own can be just as amusing as, what if you opened a Flash movie with the end of the run that we saw begin at the end of Justice League, that the movie opens with Flash and Superman running around the world or something. I mean, come on. There's so many things you could do, but I think this is going to happen. I think Ezra Miller is a gifted performer that people like to work with, and I hope this movie gets made, but I think it's really going to depend on how Shazam does.
I'll tell you what, I liked Justice League. It had some significant problems, I admit, but I had fun with it, and one of the big reasons I had fun with it was I really quite enjoyed Ezra Miller's incarnation of the Flash.
He was the heart of that movie.
Yeah, I thought he was charming and funny, and you just found his quirky awkwardness appealing at the same time. And he had a lot of the funniest stuff in the movie as well, and I really liked it. I would like to see his incarnation on the screen. And you're right, because if you look at Shazam, which again looks so good right now, if you look at Shazam and you get a sense of the tone they're going for, you look at Aquaman, you're getting a sense of this new kind of tone that Walter Hamada is bringing. Flash just seems to fit in with that. He just seems to fit in with that perfectly. But I'll tell you what, every month that passes, Robert, my doubts rise. Yeah. While I would like to see it, I think there's some good common sense arguments that you laid out as to why they should do it. But I'm telling you, every month that passes and every new delay and every new bump, it just makes me think, I'm doubting this thing's ever going to happen. And I don't know. Some people thought they were going to do a Flashpoint movie to kind of reset the WB DC universe, that clearly didn't happen. Doesn't mean you can't do a Flashpoint movie as a standalone. You can, but I don't know, man. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we like to save some time around here to take live questions. A bunch of you guys have already sent in a whole ton of live questions, so let's jump over right now and get to the live questions and see what you guys have to say. And we're going to get things started here with Rick and Man 85 writes, John and Robert, I still have a problem with no physical media until the audio quality improves. Can't get Dolby Atmos streamed over USB. I mean, digital music isn't even as good as CD still. Well, Rick, I'll say what I said before. I actually find that the quality difference between physical media and streaming media, both visually and audio, has been shrinking. There is still a gap, yeah, but I find it shrinking. Rob, is that one of the biggest things you notice is the audio when you're talking about your physical media?
No, absolutely. I've never understood. I mean, I lived through the dawn of the CD era, and people were like, well, it's too digital. It's too clean. And if the audio production that we get is so great, and people are listening now to compressed files on their earbuds. I mean, if you're an audiophile, the equipment that we can get and the what you can recreate at home as far as a theatrical experience, if you want to spend the money and get yourself a great home theater system, is insane. It's insane. And a lot of people, again, really just don't care. They just want to be able to watch it. And it's too bad, but yeah, that's one of the greatest drawback to me about streaming is the quality of the media, especially if you have high-end systems to watch all this stuff on. It's just not there yet. And audio is a big one. I mean, like you said, you can't get 7.1 or 9.1 or 11.1 in Atmos or whatever. And that's a big deal, especially if you've got a home system. It is coming. It is coming.
It's coming. All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Cameron Wiskovich writes, you know what's funny? Shortly after the second Detective Pikachu trailer dropped, Nintendo revealed the next Pokemon game, Sword and Shield. Oh, that ain't funny, and that ain't by coincidence.
Nope.
You know they coordinated that, and it was a good thing to coordinate because you get this trailer drop, and it's a good trailer, and everybody buzzes and everybody's excited, and then you go, okay, it's cresting. Hey, by the way, guys, new game. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant move, Rob. I mean, I'm not interested in it, but it's a great marketing move. All right, let's move on to the next thing here. Dim05 writes, have you tried Five Guys? I have tried Five Guys. When I came to California, I had people trick me into trying this thing called In-N-Out Burger that everybody insisted was the greatest thing in the world, and it's soggy cardboard. I do
You're
not
out
like
of your mind.
It's soggy cardboard. So I have tried Five Guys, and I don't love Five Guys, but it's a good burger. Five Guys is a good. Have you tried Five Guys, Rob?
I have not tried Five Guys, and I love my burgers. I recently tried steak. Is it Steak and Shake?
Yes.
Steak and Shake. Ever since I started doing the Inglorious Trexperts podcast, there's a Steak and Shake right across the street, and I'd never had that before, and I really quite enjoy those burgers.
It's good. They just opened one here in Burbank, right by the AMC Burbank 16.
And they sell beer.
I didn't know. Well, I don't drink beer. That's why I don't know. Okay, let's move on here. Bassam F writes, Star Wars fans rejoice. France, where I live, officially recognized lightsaber dueling as a professional sport. Rob, I heard about this like a week or so ago. Oh, you crazy French people. I mean, I don't know. I love Supernatural, but I don't think it's a smart thing to create a Supernatural Day holiday in the United States or Canada. I mean, good on ya. It's fun, but I don't know. Rob, what do you think?
Well, God love the French for recognizing lightsaber dueling as a professional sport, but they're not real lightsabers.
Yes.
There are no real
Thank
lightsabers.
You. There's no such thing as real lightsabers.
Lightsaber dueling as a sport if you don't have real lightsabers to fight with.
Yeah. Good point. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Jared's Reviews, who writes, had a doubleheader of Alita and Fighting with my family. That's a nice doubleheader. Alita was fun with a terrible script, and Fighting was heartwarming also. Will the Lakers make the playoffs? Well, I don't think the Alita script was terrible. I think it had some weaknesses, yes, and there were some definitely script weaknesses, but Overall, I enjoyed the film. I had a good time with Alita, mostly not because of the action and the visual effects, which are great, but because I love the main character. I love the main character. The movie got me sold on the main character. That is half the battle right there, and that's why I like that movie. And you're right, Fighting with My Family, very heartwarming, very funny, and I'll say yes, the Lakers will squeak into the playoffs in the 8th seed. They will squeak into the playoffs in the 8th seed, but then they're going to play the Golden State Warriors in the first round and be out anyway. But hey, at least they'll make the playoffs. All right, next up, Ben Hayusa writes, still skeptical on Dark Phoenix, but this new trailer that dropped, it was pretty better than the last trailer for sure. Well, yeah, I think you'll find a lot of people agree, because a lot of people did not love that first trailer, Robert. I mean, that's clear. And I was okay with it, but nothing special. I think even people who don't like this trailer will probably say it's a step up from the previous trailer. I think maybe some people might feel like you, Rob, where it still isn't enough. But like, do you feel that it is a better trailer than the first one, or do you think the first one's better?
It's definitely a better trailer. And don't get me wrong, I want this movie to be great, but I just think that, again, in this attempt to bring it back down, literally back down to earth, I think it just looks like X-Men 3 Redux to me.
All right, let's move on to the next question. The next one comes to us from Stubble McShave, who writes, you've got 4 bogeys heading towards you, sneezes on screen. Oh my God, a dozen more of them, and a blimp. Oh, okay, yeah, and a huge blimp. It's slowly moving south. That, my friends, is Hot Shots, or Hot Shots Part 2. It's one of the two. It's one of the two. Those are movies from an era when spoof movies were good. Right. It's been a long time since we've had a good spoof movie. They've all just been bags of crap the last like 10, 15 years. But those ones were pretty damn good. All right. Technovine writes, so to kill or not to kill Jean Grey, what say you? It is a great conundrum that they have set up in the trailer. And I think, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think that's why they just said, hey, everybody knows we're killing Mystique. Everybody knows we're killing Mystique. So let's just put it in the trailer to present the conundrum to the audience. To kill her or not to kill her. I'm guessing she dies. And Charles is the one that kills her. I think she dies and Charles kills her. Rob, does she live or die at the end of this movie?
Look, as much as I love me some Sophie Turner, she's the dead woman. I mean, after you kill one of your own teammates, you're irredeemable. You have to die. That's at the end of this. That's the power of that story. You know, Jean Grey must die. Poor Sophie Turner. But then we're going to get her on Game of Thrones, so that's okay. Of course,
she might die again.
Sophie Turner might die twice in 2 months.
She's going to be the new. Who's the actor from the first season of Game of Thrones?
Ned Stark.
Ned Stark.
Sean
yeah.
Bean.
Yeah, she's going to be the new Sean Bean. She's going to pop up in these things just to die.
Sophie Turner and everything and kill her.
And kill her off. All right. Next one up comes to us from Ben Hayusa, who writes, 2 months until Endgame. Ugh, can't wait. If only movie theaters allow pets so I can bring our dog Groot to come watch with us. Well, hey, look, I've got a couple of pets, Ben. I've got a couple of dogs. I don't want dogs in the movie theater. I do not want dogs in the movie theater. But hey, don't worry. You're going to get to watch Endgame at home 3 months later with Groot in your living room, so don't worry about it. By the way, kudos to you for naming your dog Groot. That's amazing. Ben Rayner writes, I just hope we get the most important answer to the most important question in the MCU and Endgame. And that is, who put coffee grounds down the sink? You know what is crazy to me, Rob? Seriously? That scene from Age of Ultron, or Civil War, I should say. When Tony Stark who put coffee grounds in the sink? I have never found that line funny. Ever. But every time I saw that movie in theater, the audience lost their minds laughing. And like everybody seemed to think that was the funniest thing in the world. So it's just one that didn't click with me. Did you find the line that funny?
No, but it's one of those lines, like one of my favorite throwaway lines in any movie is when it's the beginning of Beverly Hills Cop, when in Detroit, where Axel Foley's getting reamed by his captain, and Paul Reiser's kind of listening, and he turns to this locker, and he goes, "This is not my locker," because he's trying to overhear. No one laughed. I think that's one of the funniest lines ever in any movie, and I don't know why. And I think that the coffee grounds line is just like that. People, it just sounds funny because why would Tony Stark care about coffee grounds in a sink in the first place? You know, it's just, you realize he's like some anal retentive OCD guy who cleans his kitchen all the time, and that's kind of funny.
All right, let's move on here. DAL writes, any good YouTube channels you recommend? Well, I recommend this one called Robservations. You should go and check out that YouTube channel. Check that one out.
Thank you.
I'm also a big fan of, I always forget the actual letters. It's a tech channel. MKHMB is his name. He's this dude who's been doing it forever. He reviews technology, mostly phones and stuff like that, but he's great at it. And if you're a tech guy like me, that's a great YouTube channel. Do you got one YouTube channel that you would recommend, Rob?
I have become a big fan of this Lego channel. I think it's called Brickworks, and they give like top 10 Lego builds of the week, and then they show you, they have like giant sandcrawler models, and you can buy the blueprints from them and build these giant Lego things. I love this channel.
Cool.
It's cool.
That's cool. Okay, let's move on here. A name I cannot pronounce writes, trailer ends with a train wreck, hopefully not the movie. Well, that's pretty much the comment of the day. Trailer ends with the train wreck, hopefully not the movie. I unfortunately, again, what we've been hearing is that it does, and the movie is a train wreck. But hey, who knows? Fingers crossed. I mean, hold out hope. I mean, look, the X-Men franchise has been a little hit and miss. They've had some of the all-time greatest comic book movies ever, where you're talking about X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men 2, Logan, Deadpool, on and on and on. But they've also had their fair share of X-Men 3s, of X-Men Origins Wolverine, of, well, to me, Apocalypse, but you didn't mind Apocalypse all that much.
No,
so
I liked it.
It's a little bit hit and miss, so I'm just really hoping they figure out a way to make this one end with a hit. I think that's all we can do. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Alexander Olofsson, who writes, did you see the Stockholm trailer? I listened to a Swedish documentary about that event just 1 hour before the trailer dropped. What are the odds? I did see the Stockholm trailer. It was a good, powerful trailer. I'm excited about seeing it. I just have no idea. I think it's a Netflix. thing. I could be wrong about that. Rob, do you know much about it?
I watched the trailer yesterday, and I did not know about this. I mean, it's based on a true story that happened, I think, in 1973. And it looks hilarious. It looks like a wacky version of Dog Day Afternoon. I'm in.
Okay, let's move on here. Jordan Solis writes, do you think the Eagles made a mistake by letting Foles go in favor of Carson Wentz, who has been injury prone? Would love to hear your thoughts. Well, oh gosh, look, the Philadelphia Eagles are in a tough spot. You can't keep both of these guys. Carson Wentz was on his way to becoming the MVP of the league before he got injured 2 years ago. Foles came in, led them into the playoffs, took them all the way to the Super Bowl, and then won the Super Bowl for them. Then this past year, same thing happens. Wentz goes down. Nick Foles comes in, wins the last 4 games, getting them into the playoffs, and then puts them on a very impressive playoffs run and almost gets them there again. He is a fabulous quarterback, but so is Carson Wentz. This was a no-win situation for the Eagles. You got to let one guy go, and they're both bad decisions. Letting Wentz go would be a bad decision. Letting Foles go would be a bad decision. I honestly don't know what I'd do. I'd probably sit in my office and flip a coin. But it sucks that you got a quarterback like Nick Foles and you got to let him go. It pretty much sucks. All right. Catholic Jack writes, since music bios are hot right now, I would love to see Rosa Salazar from Alita take on a Pat Benatar gig. It would be good for her career post Alita. Woo. I really don't care about, I don't like talking about questions about should X actor play X role. I don't get into those discussions. I don't know, but again, I'm not all that big on musical biopics. There are a couple I quite enjoy, but I don't really think musicians are the most interesting people in the world. So I don't really find myself pining for musical biopics all that much. Don't get me wrong, there are some that I've really quite enjoyed. And then again, I don't know if Pat Benatar has an interesting life story or not. So, I'll just leave it at that. All right, Dropkick Aggie writes, so damn stoked for Detective Pikachu. Has a chance to be very special. It is a video game movie, by the way. Game came first, and what all other media is based on. Well, what we talked about yesterday, Dropkick Aggie, look, I said yesterday, technically speaking, it's a video game movie, but nobody knows the game. Like when you just ask the average person, Pokemon, they don't think video games, right? So that's why I conceded yesterday that technically speaking, it is a video game. It's a video game movie, technically speaking. But for all intents and purposes, in all practical ways, it's not a video game movie, really. But technically it is, but practically it's not. At least not in my opinion. Rob, like I think you kind of had the same thought as me on that. Did you not? Or I can't remember.
Yeah, no, it's, is it a video game movie? I don't know. It was based. Okay, I'm just reading now because I was curious. The franchise began as Pokemon Red and Green, released outside of Japan as Pokemon Red and Blue, a pair of video games for the original Game Boy. Those were the first Pokemon games. So technically, you could say that it's a video game movie, but I think it's become a transmedia franchise, and I wouldn't say that this movie is in fact based on a video game. It looks like they've taken the concept of Pokemon and done something new and original with it.
Yeah.
Which
now
there
is a detective Detective Pikachu game, I believe, but this isn't a movie translation of the game. It's just kind of the title and the concept. So that's why I concede. Yeah, technically speaking, yes, but practically speaking, no.
I mean, they've taken all the elements, these elements of Pokemon and combined them into this new frothy confection of awesome, it looks like. So I look, like you, I never thought I'd ever be interested in seeing a Pokemon movie. I never saw the last three, and I really want to see this. It looks really great. It looks like a zany fantasy film, and I'm in.
Yeah, it comes down to who cares whether you technically call it a video game movie or not. The movie looks great, and that's all that matters. And that's all that matters. Who cares the semantics about whether you want to call it a video game movie or not call it a video game movie? Who cares? At the end of the day, all that matters is the movie itself, and it looks freaking really good right now. And I can't believe I'm excited to see a Pokemon movie.
Me either.
All right. Murray Reich writes, Thanos after seeing Dark Phoenix trailer. Fuck! Dark Phoenix is no joke, guys. The Phoenix is no joke. Brad Timms writes, I know you guys are sick of this, but just one more joke. Thanos snaps. Robert Meyer Burnett. Has anybody seen Han? Thanos sweats nervously. There you go, Rob.
I love that.
That's not bad, Brad. That one was not bad. All right, we still got about 10 minutes here, so let's keep going here. Bedonsky98 writes, Morning, guys. Rob, I saw your Twitter that you said A Clockwork Orange is your number 2 all-time favorite movie. What is your number 1?
The Godfather. Actually, I'd say The Godfather 1 and 2. I know it's not a sexy choice. It's probably an old stoggy choice now, but I love The Godfather 1 and 2, and watching them together, yeah.
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, a lot of people just argue which is the greatest film of all time, Godfather 1 or Godfather 2. I mean, it's just all time. All right, Murray Reich writes, thoughts on the Intruder trailer with Quaid and I think it's Michael Ealy. Not bad, creepy as hell. Kind of gives away the whole movie, but it looks creepy. I think it looks pretty intriguing. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Rob, have you seen that trailer yet?
Yeah, it looks. Hey, it's right up my alley, so I'm in.
Yeah, it looks really good. And I love seeing Dennis Quaid and stuff. So, all right. Lee Mallinson writes, Robin movie pitch. Oh, here we go. Home Alone with superheroes. Bruce away in Nada Parbat when Wayne Manor comes under attack by Riddler. Alfred gets captured and Robin has to step up and save the day. Green light? Nah, not me. I mean, actually, you know what? If you want to go stupid comedy, kind of like a Hit Girl, and do it that way, yeah, I'm okay. Something in the DCEU? No, not at all. I don't. Could you see a concept like this? Even
I would.
Even as funny.
Think I would change that pitch and instead of Wayne Manor, make it Arkham Asylum. That somehow Robin is trapped in Arkham Asylum and the Batman is nowhere to be found, and all the inmates get released. Do it that way. The
problem is that doesn't sound like a comedy anymore. That sounds like a dark thriller survival thing. Yeah, could be funny. Okay. Actually, that's not bad. Because a lot of people, I've said for a long time, I don't want Robin in the DCU because it's cool in the animated stuff and it's cool in the comic books to have this grown man taking a 12-year-old into a fight with mobsters who have machine guns. That's called child abuse.
Yeah.
It does not work in live action. Now, what I would then have people say to me is, but John, you liked Hit Girl because Hit Girl was a silly, dumb spoof comedy, not meant to be taken seriously in the least. It was supposed to be ridiculous and all that kind of stuff. It was a comedy. So if you want to do that with Robin, I'm fine. Then some people say, well, John, Spider-Man's a teenager. You have no problem with him because Spider-Man has the powers of the gods. Spider-Man can lift a tank over his head. Spider-Man can dodge bullets. Spider-Man can do... He has superpowers. Robin is a 12-year-old with a stick. And I've always said, so in animated, great. In the comics, great. And if you want to do a Nightwing or like a version of Robin like they do in Titans where he's a grown-ass man and all that kind of stuff, I'm totally cool with it. If you want to do a live-action movie and said, you know, he's been training Dick Grayson since he was 8 and now he's 19 and he's ready to take him out on the street, then with that, I'm great. But then a lot of people will be upset with that because it kind of disrupts the canon of it, right? But I think it's the only way to do it in a live action thing. Like, how could you see them bringing a Robin into like a live action, more serious toned DCU type of movie?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, you have Batman, especially a realistic Batman. If you had Ben Affleck's Batman taking around a 12-year-old kid dressed as Robin into the situations Batman got himself up to, it's borderline. Why would you saddle yourself with that? Why would you take that kind of responsibility? I mean, there's just no way. As they call me the gatekeeper of verisimilitude, I don't know how you make that work in live action. That's why, you know, Chris O'Donnell played Batman or played Robin next to George Clooney's Batman, you know, and I just don't see how you could do it.
But as a comedy, I'm all for it. A Home Alone comedy, sure. Give that one a shot. Why not? Jay Bling writes, my answer to my question yesterday about what movie was so lousy you felt you could have done it better is Baywatch. Ooh, yeah, it's Baywatch. Dude, I'll tell you what, I've only like walked out of 3 or 4 movies in my life. And I saw Baywatch at the Paramount lot. Like Paramount invited me over to the lot to sit down and watch it with a bunch of other people. And a buddy of mine who works at Paramount was literally sitting right across the aisle from me. And had he not, as much as I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I would have got up and walked out of that movie. Like, it's so horrendously bad. It is so, and I love Zac Efron and I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But that movie was so unspeakably bad, I wanted to leave. But I was at Paramount as a guest. I had my buddy who worked at Paramount sitting right across the aisle from me, and I had to sit there for the whole thing. So I feel you, Jay. I feel you. All right. Willow Yang writes, Jesse James, Team Rocket blasts off at speed of light. Surrender now or prepare to fight. Meowth. That's right. Team Rocket in a nutshell. Willow follows that up with, I do think there's a chance that Team Rocket is in the movie since they're connected to Mewtwo. John should play their boss Giovanni. Okay. Because of the second message, I understand now that we're talking about Pokemon. I had no... Jesse, James, Team Rocket, blast off, speed of light, surrender now, prepare to fight. Now, I got to tell you, Willow, I was sitting there for a couple of seconds not knowing what the hell we were talking about. I had no idea what we were talking about. Then you mentioned Mewtwo and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Were you following along, Robert? Or were you as lost as me when I was reading?
I was. By the way, Willow is a big, she's Canadian.
Yeah, she is.
She's a big fan of ours. And when she explained to me that Willow and Yang, like Willow is what Yang means in Chinese. So her name is really Willow. Yeah. So it's like her name's Willow.
Willow.
And every time I see her name pop up, it gives me a smile. It puts a smile on my face. And she said she has a cousin named Yang. But the Yang's different. It means like the ocean.
I love that. Reading that, it gives me a sense of what some other people probably feel like when they hear us talking about, you know, Infinity War and the Gauntlet and all that kind of stuff, or some Star Wars mythology, like blah, 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 blah. It probably sounds like Greek to people because I'm reading Willow's message. Jesse Chambers, Team Rocket, blast off, speed of light, surrender now, prepare to fight. I'm like, I have no idea what we're talking about. And that's probably how my mom feels like when I'm in a room with a cousin of mine and talking about, yeah, so then the time stone does this. And it's like, they're probably...
When I talk to my friend Dave Hargrove, my girlfriend Elizabeth frequently listens to me talking. And I sometimes think to myself, she's probably thinking to herself, what the hell are these guys talking about? I have no clue.
Yeah,
because what we talk about half the time it's just nebulous.
So Willow just gave us a little taste of our own medicine there. Okay, let's keep moving here. Ant Banks 1984 says, if there was an award for top super chat commenters, Ben Rayner and Murray Reich would be favorites. You're not wrong. Ben and Murray both send in amazingly fun stuff for us to talk about and support the channel. So they are kind of the MVPs of the super chat. So thanks so much for pointing that out, Ant Banks. Aaron H. writes, the real question is who would win? Thanos with 2 stones versus Jean Grey. Ooh, Ooh, see, this is an example of the Willow question, because somebody who doesn't follow this stuff saying Thanos with 2 stones versus G. What the hell are you talking about, Rob? Thanos with a couple of stones in his gauntlet, like at one point, as we saw him in Infinity War, had 1 or 2 stones for a while.
Yeah.
With a full power Dark Phoenix Jean Grey.
I would say it would depend on which 2 stones Thanos was wielding. I think you'd need the reality and the mind stone, because Phoenix still has a mind, and if she was on full force, full Phoenix force, you could still get to her intellect with the mind stone. And then with the reality stone, you could probably use that to destroy whatever the Phoenix force was, because you could warp the reality of her. So with the mind stone and the reality stone, maybe you could win. But it would be a good, as they said in Stand By Me, it'd be a good fight, though.
It'd be a good fight. I'm going to take Thanos with 2 stones. I'm going to take Dark Phoenix. I'm going to take Dark Phoenix in that fight. I think, I think like a full powered Thanos with the full gauntlet. No, but yeah, with 2, maybe even 3 stones, I might still give it to.
See, now I really want to know. I want to go on to some Marvel Wikipedia and read.
I want to see that fight now. Now I want to see that fight. All right, let's move on here. Jim Boyers writes, John, I have to offer Rob some closure. If I lost Gal Gadot, I'd want Shaw to put me out of my misery. It was a mercy killing. Hashtag Han wanted it.
Jim, my friend, I can't argue with your logic.
That's a good one. Hashtag Han wanted it. That's good. Okay, let's go on now here to Ant Banks. 1984 says, Endgame trailer after Captain Marvel. Certainly a possibility, but if, and this is a giant if the rumors are true, and the tickets for Endgame go on sale on April 2nd, I suspect that's when the next Endgame trailer is. That they will drop it, the trailer, and have the big tag, tickets on sale now. But I still believe it's possible. It's possible that they could put at the end of Captain Marvel. We'll have to wait and see. Lee Edworthy writes, over under 30% we will see Nick Fury lose his eye in Captain Marvel. You know what, Rob? I'm going to go out and say under. 30 is already a low number, but I think, and here's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to play, do you ever see Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember Crispin Glover played a bellboy in that movie? Where in the present, he's missing an arm. And when they go back in the past, he still has 2 arms. And so they constantly have Crispin Glover getting in these situations like he's carrying a chainsaw. And all the guys are like just waiting to see him lose his arm because they know at some point he loses his arm. But then it never happens. He never loses the arm, right? Till the end of the film. I have a feeling in Captain Marvel, they're going to Crispin Glover, the Nick Fury character. I have a feeling we're going to get a couple of scenarios happen in the movie that is going to make us, the audience, go, oh, this is where he loses his eye. And then he doesn't lose the eye. And I think even by the end of the film, he still hasn't lost his eye. So I'm going to take the under. Even though 30% is a low number, I'm going to take the under on 30. What about you, Rob?
You know what? I like what you just said. I think it'd be really cool if they leave the way Nick Fury lost his eye a complete mystery and we never know how he lost his eye. Just like we never see what's in the briefcase in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that. All right, we got time for just a couple more here, so let's fly through these. Carlos Herrera writes, have you heard any news on All-Star Weekend by Jamie Foxx? It stars Robert Downey Jr., Gerard Butler, and Benicio del Toro. Keep up the filthy work. No. Look, I've heard about this movie a while ago that they were going to... I don't even know if it's been shot. For all I know, this movie's been shot and is in the can already, or it's just not happening at all. I remember hearing about it. Jamie Foxx is supposed to direct it, but I don't know anything about it. Rob, do you know anything about this movie?
No.
Yeah, so I got no information at this point, Carlos. We'll keep our eyes open for it, though. Timbala, the Spider Monkey, writes, what did you think of the Blob remake from the 80s? It's one of the few remakes I think was actually better than the original. I like the Blob remake in the 80s. I mean, granted, it's been a while since I've seen it. But I like that movie.
I really like it too. I don't think it achieves the greatness that the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers or The Fly or John Carpenter's The Thing do, but it is a worthy remake. And remember, the first Blob is pretty goofy. So this new Blob was a step up because it's genuinely creepy and scary.
All right, let's move on here. Roman Bryant writes, okay, Rob, Kevin Feige calls you in for a meeting. He asks you, Rob, how do we introduce Moon Knight into the MCU? How do you answer, Kevin?
I would do that really quickly. I would make Mark Spector, another multimillionaire who lives in New York City, he is Moon Knight. I would introduce Mark Spector as a character in another MCU movie first. And once we've met Mark Spector, we don't show Moon Knight, then we siege into a Moon Knight movie. That's how I would do it.
All right, that sounds like a good approach. Sin Vendetta writes, what's the best place to buy digital movies, especially since majority of these digital services are not connected to between each other? Well, there's two answers to that, Sin. Number one, for me, I mean, your mileage may vary. It's all about taste. I use the Google Play Store. I love the Google Play Store, not only because I'm so plugged into the Google ecosphere already, and not only because it's got pretty much everything it carries, but also you can watch all your movies from YouTube. Like if you're just on YouTube, you can access all your movies and start watching them on YouTube if you want to. You have them with you everywhere you go. And let's be honest, Google isn't going anywhere. Google ain't about to disappear. Right. Like ever. Okay. So there's that. But there's also this movie service called Movies Anywhere that I have checked it out and you can use it. You may find it useful, where Movies Anywhere, you can connect all your different movie services to Movies Anywhere, and you can access all your movies from there. So I get all my movies on Google Play, but if I open up my Movies Anywhere app, I can see all my Google Play movies. And if I also have movies, and I do have a couple of movies that I've bought them through Amazon Prime, I can go into Movies Anywhere and see all my Google Play movies, all my Amazon Prime movies, all my this movie, that movie, all that kind of stuff. So that is a service you may want to consider. I would still recommend continuously getting your movies from one source. And the one I use is Google Play. Now, Rob, I know you are a physical media guy, but do you ever buy stuff digitally? And if you do, where do you normally get it from?
I never buy stuff digitally. I bought some, I've downloaded some albums, music from iTunes. That's something I've been doing for a long time, but I've never bought a movie digitally. I guess I would buy it from iTunes or Google Play or someplace like that.
All right. Aaron H. writes, over under 30% that we see the true world breaker Hulk before the third act of Endgame. Rob, what do you think?
That was the idea of the world breaker Hulk was introduced sort of in the whole Scar storyline when Hulk lost his queen and he fought the Sentry and all that. And basically one step could destroy a continent. I don't think we're going to see him Hulk out that far. World breaker Hulk's a little silly.
I'll be happy just to see him Hulk out like the way we saw him Hulk out in the first Avengers. And I just want to see them introduce that concept that we've had in other mediums, that Hulk theoretically has no limit to his strength. That as the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets, the more powerful he gets, and there's no theoretical limit to it. I'd be happy if they showed us that, but I'm not even totally sure. It's certainly not going to get that before the third act in Endgame, I don't think. But man, you'll see one guy geeking out in the theaters if they did. All right, two more quick questions here. This one comes to us from Enrique Mija, who writes, what movie would benefit from a 4K restoration? No, all of them. I guess, you know what? Free Enterprise. Free Enterprise would benefit from a 4K restoration.
I'm looking into that, by the way. I might have news.
Oh, that would be exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have any one particular film that you'd love to see a 4K restoration of?
Yeah. I would love to see the original Star Wars trilogy, a proper restoration of the original theatrical versions of the Star Wars trilogy in 4K. And I especially want to see the director's cut of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It's the 40th anniversary of the film this year, and I would love to see a proper 4K restoration of that and all of the visual effects created for the director's edition up-res to 4K and released in IMAX like they did with 2001.
All right, final question of the day comes to us from Ant Banks 1984. And by the way, for everybody else who's got questions after Ant Banks, don't you worry. I'm going to take all your questions. I will be answering them all in a video a little bit later today called the companion video. We're just running out of time here for the John Campea Show. But all of you who have sent in questions, they're all going to get answered in a video today. Just keep your eyes open for that a little bit later. So the final question today from Ant Banks 1984. Happy Black History Month, especially seeing Mahershala Ali, Regina King, and Spike Lee win Oscars this year. Proud moment for myself and many other African Americans across the country. You know what the funny thing is? This reminds me of this, Ant Banks and Rob, is that I remember shortly after Black Panther came out, and I got this first. I got a lot of emails and messages from people about a lot of different things, but there was this one in particular that really stood out to me, and it was this woman who actually lived in Atlanta, and she wrote to me this pretty long email that just basically lays out. She goes, "Look, I get heroes are for everybody. I get that. I know that." And I actually shared a little bit on my show once, I think. Maybe I did. I think I did. She goes, "I know heroes are for everybody, regardless of their color or anything like that. I know that. And I know that in different forms and different ways, we've seen black heroes appear in one form or another and stuff like that." She said, "But as a black woman, she was writing that to see a movie in this new era of comic book movies, in this new golden age of comic book movies that has been around with the the incarnation of the MCU and the X-Men and stuff like this, to finally see one of these movies with somebody who looks like me on the screen." And I've heard that terminology before. And I'll be honest with you, as a pasty white dude, and even compared to most white dudes, I'm pretty pasty. But as a pasty white dude, I've heard that terminology before, and I get it. Like, oh yeah, I guess that would kind of feel special to have somebody that looks like you in one of these movies. I guess, yeah. But it was the way she described it that made me think, you know what? This is the first time I think I'm getting it, at least getting close to getting it, because of the way she described it and how much passion she put into this email, describing about how she felt, and she had a kid, she had a son. She goes, being able to show something like that to my son as well, and what it meant. And then I made the illustration or the allegory afterwards of saying, you know what? I think I can relate a little bit, because now that I think about it, I love the UFC and I love MMA. What you don't see many of at all in MMA are Italian MMA fighters. You don't see a lot of them in the UFC. But I remember there was this one guy, and he, what was they call him the Legionnaire, was his nickname, the UFC nickname. He was this Italian dude who had all these Roma Italian tattoos on him. And I remember as an Italian, like, I saw an Italian guy getting in the ring, and it caught me by surprise, but immediately, like, my chest pumped out a little bit, and I just felt, and I realized, oh, wait a minute, is that the type of stuff she's talking about? Because even something as little as seeing a UFC fighter who just happens to be Italian, all of a sudden I get all excited because it's an Italian in there, and I never see that. I think maybe that was the first time I got the smallest glimpse of what it must mean for an entire people group who haven't been well represented in these movies historically, to see stuff like that. And look, I'll never fully get it because I don't live in that context, and I didn't grow up in that context, so I'll never fully get it, and I understand that. But I think with really well thought out emails like that, I'm able to at least get a little bit of an idea about how cool that must feel for a lot of people for the age that we now live in, with a Black Panther, or with the Academy Awards, when you're seeing Regina King win the Academy Award, and you're seeing Mahershala Ali win the Academy Award. And yes, other black performers and black artists have won awards before, but it's so infrequent that it must feel pretty cool. And I'll never fully get it, but I think it's a really special thing.
Well, and it is. And today, by the way, is the end of Black History Month. It's the last day of Black History Month. And I wanted to point out, at this year's Academy Awards, we had 2 women of color win Academy Awards for production design and costume for
Never
Black
happened
Panther.
before.
So you had 5 awards at the Academy Awards, won by I guess I want to say Black Americans. I guess they would be. And I don't know if the 2 women who won are actually American. So forgive me if I'm wrong. But
it was the first time ever in those categories.
Ever in those categories. And it was the first time in 30 years that Black women won, other than in acting categories, at the Academy Awards in Black History Month. So, that's the funny thing. I've often tried to tell people what you just said about representation. And it's just having people there that aren't either the best friend or the sidekick. But now we saw a whole epic science fiction comic book film where it wasn't about race so much as it was about just people. And those people happen to be of color. And that's what real representation is. That's when you have real, where it's not any kind of tokenism. And that's what we will try as an experiment. If whatever race you are, whoever's watching this, the next time you watch your next 5 movies, start looking for who's the protagonist, and keep in mind how many times you've got white protagonists in these movies, in these big movies we all love, and you don't have Asians, you don't have East Indians, you don't have all the different other races on the planet Earth are not there. And, we don't even recognize that. We're not cognizant of it at all. But imagine if you were one of those people, like that woman who wrote you was saying, her son gets to now grow up in a world where Black Panther exists. And that 5 years ago, that wasn't true.
Yeah.
And isn't it great we live in that world now?
It is great. It is great that we live in that world now. All right, guys, listen, that will do it for us for today. That's all the time. We've gone a little bit over time here. Thanks so much for joining us here on the John Campea Show. Again, for all you guys who sent in questions that didn't get answered yet, don't worry, they will be answered in a companion video a little bit later today. I, of course, want to thank the one and the only, the great Robert Meyer Burnett for being here today. Robert, where can people find you?
Well, as always, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or as John said, find my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, or go to my website, theburnettwork.net.
And of course, you guys can follow me on Instagram simply at John Campea. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. Don't forget to click the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And make sure you come back and join us again for another episode of the John Campea Show tomorrow. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks for being here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, bye-bye.